18.
The counting begins after Kenyans turn out in large numbers to choose a new president.
20.
But despite tight security, gunmen are reported to have stormed 2 polling stations and taken control of election material. I'm Charlie Angela. This is the Al Jazeera News Hour live from London. Also coming up, the battle against Al-Qaeda. We report on Chad's military action against fighters in northern Mali. And from tearing it down to fighting to keep it up, how Berlin's attitude to the wall that once divided their city is changing. Welcome to the programme. Kenyans have turned out in high numbers to cast their votes in an anxiously awaited general election. It's Kenya's first presidential election since 2007, when disputed results led to ethnic clashes which left more than 1,000 people dead. Since then, complex election rules have been put in place to prevent another outbreak of ethnic and political violence. Although the day was mostly peaceful, multiple attacks on the coast killed at least 17 people. Well, we'll have more on the violence in a moment, but first, Nazanin Mashiri reports from Nairobi.
This could be Raila Odinga's last chance to become president. Casting his vote in Nairobi, he promised to concede if defeated to avoid any chance of violence. They believe in the democratic process and that their vote means something. Nazanin Mashiri, Al Jazeera, Nairobi.
To Iraq now, where gunmen are reported to have killed at least 40 Syrian soldiers and government employees in Anbar province. Iraqi officials say some 65 Syrian troops and officials fled a rebel attack in Syria on Friday and were taken into protective custody. They were being escorted back to the Syrian border when their convoy was attacked. Several Iraqis were also killed. In Egypt, at least 20 people have been injured and buildings set alight as protesters clashed with police in the city of Port Said. Police fired tear gas at hundreds of protesters who'd gathered outside a local government office. 6 people have been killed and nearly 600 others injured since the fighting began on Sunday. Al Jazeera's Anita McNaught has the latest from Port Said.
A lot of casualties among the protesters in Port Said in the last few hours, and a lot of tear gas in the air in the city still. The governorate building is on fire, and also attacked by protesters has been the Ministry of Interior building. More worrying for the authorities, in the last 24 hours they have 3 policemen dead. Another security challenge for him and a difficult one to navigate.
Well, still to come this news hour, as US doctors apparently cure a baby born with HIV, we look at what it could mean for AIDS orphans in Zimbabwe. And in sport, Manchester United prepare for the biggest game of their season so far, and the return of a rather special former player. A reminder of the top stories here on Al Jazeera. Vote counting is underway in Kenya after a huge turnout at polling stations across the country. It's the first poll since post-election violence 5 years ago. 6 people have been killed and hundreds injured in 2 days of violent clashes in the Egyptian city of Port Said. And Syrian rebels say they've taken control of most of the northern city of Al-Raqqa. It came as gunmen killed at least 40 Syrian troops and government officials in Iraq, where they'd fled to escape rebel attacks. Now, after almost 2 years of conflict, the basic price of goods in Syria has rocketed. Everything from cooking oil to petrol now costs several times what it did before the war began. Well, Casey Kaufman reports from Aleppo, where people are doing whatever it takes to survive.
Only 1 bag per person in a single line. Minor conditions before this rebel fighter lets them in. Clean cooking gas will remain a luxury this family can't afford. Casey Kaufman, Al Jazeera, Aleppo City.
The head of the French military says one of Al-Qaeda's main leaders in the Sahara region is probably dead. On Friday, Chad's army forces say they killed Abdelhamid Abu Zaid during an attack on a rebel base. He'd been blamed for the kidnappings of at least 20 Westerners in the past 5 years. But the French army chief says Zaid's death still cannot be confirmed.
C'est probable,
It's probable, but only probable. We don't have any certainty for the moment. It would be good news. Because we haven't recovered the body.
A political crisis is unravelling in Moldova after the government lost a confidence vote in parliament. The country is now facing its fourth general election in as many years. The confidence vote was called by the Communist Party, which says Moldovans are dissatisfied with the economy and corruption. Russian police have detained a suspect in the acid attack on the Bolshoi Ballet's artistic director. Sergei Filin's eyes and face were severely burned in the attack in Moscow in January. No details of the suspect have been released, but police are also searching the home of one of the ballet's top dancers. And a real-life Batman has come to the aid of police in northern England, bringing in a wanted suspect at 1 in the morning. CCTV images caught the moment the man handed over his catch at a police station in the town of Bradford. And just like the comic book superhero, Batman then disappeared into the night before police were able to identify him. The suspect was later charged with handling stolen goods and fraud. And don't forget, you can watch Al Jazeera online. The address for that is aljazeera.com, and it's updated 24 hours a day. Well, that's it from me, Charlie Angela, in London. Coming up next, it's Earthrise.